What if I told you around our little chat this morning? What if I told you that Hochul, the governor of New York, um, she kind of deployed the National Guard, bro, and
Yeah, I heard a little bit about that on my flight home.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a little bit, and it turns out the reason why was because there's too many guns in sensitive places. Um, you can't make this up, man. Like if you guys are new to this, the stuff that we're seeing coming out of governors who are absolutely gun controlling governors and progressive woke governors, it's mind boggling, man. It is. There's just no words for the level of stupid that this is.
Right. So they go and gut their police departments. I mean, forever the Chicago Police Department has been at war with the leadership of New York City, for example, right? And so they've basically created a target-rich environment for criminals. They're just running
Correct.
roughshod. They're passing these crazy laws, making it, if it's below a set amount of dollars, then this isn't even going to be investigated by police. All these things to incentivize criminals to do criminal things. And then when it all blows up in their face and the people get up in arms because of all these feel-good politics that are literally getting people killed, stores shut down, businesses leaving en masse, now we're going to deploy the National Guard because you don't have the police officers
weird?
because you've run them all off and told them and tied their hands and said, don't enforce the laws. All of a sudden, now we want to deploy the National Guard. Yeah.
Right. Isn't that weird? Isn't that odd how when I just give you the high level, it just doesn't seem quite right? Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me show you a few things here. And for reference, Doctor, this is number 6, just to throw it up for the people so they can see the article. But let me show you number 7 here, Tim. Here's some actual numbers. Overall, cops have seized 53% more weapons, which includes guns and cutting instruments from people arrested in the subway system. Basically, 316 weapons compared to 207 during the same period last year. So 53% more. Again, if you guys are not up to speed on what Kathy Hochul has done over the last 2 to 3 years, she signed into law the sensitive places, which is basically a snubbing of the nose against the Supreme Court to say, well, yeah, we'll give you the concealed carry permit, but you can't carry it anyway, and here's all the penalties. That's why you've seen very similar things happen in New York Times. Remember that migrant that we were talking about who was underage, who also had a gun, who was not legal, who shot somebody, but it's like they're not getting charged for sensitive places. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Well, and looking at this number, so seizures are up 53%, which includes guns and cutting instruments in quotations. And it makes me wonder, what's the percentage of guns versus cutting instruments? I'm going to guess it's like 10 guns and the rest are all cutting instruments.
No, how far off am I? You're actually underselling it. There's actually more guns than you thought. All right, we're gonna get to that in 1 second, though. Let me. You know what? Heck with it. That was such a good plug. This is number 10. We're going out of order. I don't even care. We're wilding on these streets.
Oh, here we go.
So here's armed on the subways. Here you go. So in 2024, there's 17 guns total and 299 blades. And in 2023, there's 8 guns and 199 blades. So that's the breakdown.
So I was close.
So you actually undersold it. You were close, but you
all the way up until 24, I had it. I was a little high. I wouldn't have fared so well on The Price is Right, but I think in 24,
That's impressive, isn't it? All of this in sensitive places. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do about it, but the NYPD people have something to say about it. Listen to this. This is from the Detectives Union. This is number 8. The odds of confiscating a gun is high because criminals are more emboldened than ever to carry a firearm because they know there are no consequences, said Paul from the NYPD Detectives Union, blaming the city's broken criminal justice system. Quote, the real question is, when are state legislators, district attorneys, and city council going to recognize and fix the crisis they created?
Yeah.
Well said, Paul.
But again, look at all the statistics and all the information, all the comments being said thus far by public officials and just the raw data. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that they're not talking about the criminal themselves. Look,
isn't that weird?
How do you keep an illegal weapon off a subway? Well, you go after the criminal that would be carrying the weapon, because I can guarantee you the weapon didn't get its ticket or jump the turnstile and put itself on the train. They never seem to want to address the criminal or the crime or the problems. They just want to talk about numbers like, oh, well, look, we got 17 handguns. We're saving New York City. No. No.
It's weird. You would think that they could just. It's kind of. You know what? Maybe we break this down, Tim. Are you willing to go down a hypothetical, like a different analogy with me?
Sure.
All right. Well, it turns out that there is a epidemic of PVC pipes in the city, and we found out that those PVC pipes are being brought in by trucks. So you know what we did, Tim? We made PVC pipes illegal, and they're still finding a way in.
Somehow they're still winding up on trucks and coming in, huh?
It's odd. You would think that you just stop the trucks, and then because the trucks are containing the thing that you're banning, it would just work. You'd think that, wouldn't you?
Right, because it's the truck doing it, isn't it? It has nothing to do with the driver or the criminal organization.
Well, actually, in this case, it would be the PVC pipes that are the problem, not the people bringing them in, right? Because you got to think about gun control life. Because gun control life says the very existence of the PVC pipes are the problem.
Right.
And if we just didn't have PVC pipes, we wouldn't have PVC pipe problems.
Right. The criminals would just stop criminaling. They wouldn't find something else to do, or they wouldn't manufacture their own PVC pipes. I mean, that's just who would do that, you know?
Right. Who would do that?
It's definitely an inanimate object problem, and we really
Exactly.
look. We need to stop those inanimate objects. We got to come up with a cool slogan. This inanimate object violence has got to come to an end. We have to stop the inanimate objects.
I've got the slogan. Are you ready?
Yes.
Don't lay pipe.
Oh, well, okay. And then moving right along.
That was it. Next T-shirt. Boom. Well, so that's what's been going on.
Keep your pipe in the pants if you're going into New York City.
Keep your pipe in your trucks.
Yeah.
Keep your pipes in your truck. Yeah. So here's what the solution is, Tim, and you alluded to it, and we touched on it, but this makes so much sense. This is by far the most common sense solution for the epidemic of gun violence inside the sensitive places where they aren't allowed and they can't be. Governor Hochul this week deployed 750 National Guardsmen, along with 250 state and basically Metro Transit Authority police to check riders' bags at busy stations. So you're just going to go straight to checking bags and not arresting criminals, huh?
Isn't that sounds very similar to what was that, stop and frisk?
Stop and frisk. Sounds very stop and frisky.
And weren't the leftists kind of opposed to that?
Only if you mean rabidly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But now they're using the
not very bad.
Now they're not using police to do stop and frisk. No. Now they've involved federal troops, and I don't care what you say. National Guard go to federal training. They get federal funding. They're armed just like the Army, and they get deployed just like the Army. So the National Guard, in my mind, are federal troops. So now they have federal troops policing the subway systems, and
but it's got a different name,
doing the stop and frisk
Guard
thing. So now it seems like we're devolving here a bit, but I could be wrong.
Are you thinking about a Bruce Willis movie, Escape from New York?
Yeah. And I'm also thinking of this little thing called the Posse Comitatus Act. But let's not.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't you get intellectual with me, sir. This is a podcast of two rednecks talking about gun stuff. Oh, I'm just kidding. We're actually pretty smart sometimes. But yeah, it turns out, Tim, that's the solution the whole time. We could have just deployed the National Army and all crime would go away. Because if the criminals don't have guns, they're not going to do criminal things. It's so obvious.
Yeah. And, and like Biden obvious. Said, we'll just, bring in some F-16s and who is that guy, Swalwell, that has that secretary of Fang Bang.
Fang.
Bang Bang.
Bang Fang. No, Bang Fang is the action. Fang Fang is the name.
And didn't he say
Tim?
Didn't he say that the government has nukes? And so we went from F-16s. And I think the Fang Bang said that he was into using nuclear weapons on American citizens. Interesting. They got the National Guard. Let's just go ahead and call in the attack helicopters, and we should be able to square this pretty quickly.
Solve the problem. We went from Escape from New York to World War Z real quick. Yeah, absolutely. That was quite the journey, but that's happened while you were gone.
Okay.
So that's a thing. And I just would like to recap something that I just find so fascinating before we move on to the G3 segment, which I'm real excited about, by the way. So if you zoom out a little bit on this, Tim, and anybody watching, zoom out on this and understand what just happened. So we started about, I think it was like 10 years ago. Giuliani's run as as mayor was 10 to 15 years ago, roughly. Don't quote me on the exact time. Stop and frisk brought down crime in New York City across the board. and the left decried it as XYZ, fill in your ism here. Okay. Then they stopped doing it. Then crime started going up. Then they decided to continue their assault on the Second Amendment. Then they got smoked by the Supreme Court. So then they said, well, there's now sensitive places. We're going to give you a permit, but you can't carry it almost anywhere in the city.
Right.
Then they had migrants who can't legally own guns, legally buy guns, do any kind of activity around the Second Amendment because they don't have rights because they're not actually United States citizens. They're shooting off in Times Square, the most popular sensitive place. They don't get charged under the sensitive places new felony system. And now you've got the National Guard going down to a sensitive place to stop guns because guns can't exist, but because they're there, you got to send the National Guard in because the police have been too defunded. Did I sum that up nicely?
Yeah, that sounds like really solid leadership, doesn't it? In the movie Idiocracy. I mean,
jeez.
It's stunning stupidity. And the fact that roughly half the nation supports the party doing this. Now, look, I'm not saying the Republicans are perfect. I have plenty of beefs with the Republican Party. But when it comes to bad and worse, there is no doubt in any person's mind that has more than two brain cells to rub together that the Democrats are doing worse, right? Republicans do bad, but the Democrats take bad to extremes. And it seems like as part of their party platform and how they try to recruit new followers, they just keep going further left and further crazy. And apparently that's bringing in the Gen Z voter. And I'm just not understanding how this is possible.
But that's the thing. It's not, though. That's what but that's the fascinating thing. You're 100% right on what the left's doing. They're increasing their rhetoric volume and intensity because they're losing the return on investment of the rhetoric. So they're going even further. Like, it won't be long until they are so far beyond the pale that no one listens to them. But for right now, we're in the pale where some people still do. But the fascinating part about this, the youth, the ones that are coming up in high school, are more conservative than they've been in a very long time.
Boy, I hope that's right.
No, I mean, that is actual proven statistics that have been released, and I've seen multiple reports the last year over it. But you're seeing the younger people, and this is what's so fascinating. I love these little conversations, side tunnels. People are saying that's because the left is so dominant that the next generation is rebelling just because they rebel against anything.
Yeah.
So, for example, 10, 20, 30 years ago, everyone was rebelling against Republicans because their parents were Republicans. But now, because all the parents are liberals, they're all becoming conservatives just to screw with the parents.
Yeah.
I don't think that's it. I think personally it's much more a line of, well, you say men are evil just by existing. And that if you have XYZ chromosomes and you're born in this race, then you hate the other race and you're guilty of. I think it's the demonization of something that no one did themselves.
Yeah.
And the propagation of these problems, because it's, why are you getting punched in the face for something you didn't do?
Yeah.
You know, I think it's that.
That's the leftist shtick. I mean, that's their modus operandi. I mean, that's how they operate. They have to create class warfare. They have to create friction between different groups because through that chaos is how they gain power. And this has been going on since history has been recorded, right? This is nothing new, but we keep, what they say the very definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result each time. And that's exactly what the left keeps doing. And they're like, how many conversations have you had? Like, communism, socialism is bad. It's a bad ideology. It's deadly. It's horrible. It impoverishes people.
Proven.
And they go, well, it just hasn't been done right yet.
Exactly. My utopian. It's nothing wrong with my utopian ideals. People before me who just did an entire nation, the second biggest one in conflict for 20, 30 years with the United States in a Cold War, they just didn't do it right. If they weren't Soviets, it would have been fine.
Right.
And if they weren't Chinese, it would have been fine.
Right.
And if they weren't German, it would have been fine. Right. And Czechoslovakian. And if only those people had just done it right every single time it's been tried, it fails miserably.
Yeah.
It is mind-boggling.
But they love it. The promise of free stuff is just too powerful. I
don't even think it's free stuff. I don't think it's free stuff. If you're talking about the psychology of it, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it has to do with the idea that in socialism, you are being relieved of the concept of competition, and you are being relieved of the potential outcome of lesser than because of your performance.
Right.
Because meritocracy, I think it's a protection and an insulation from life choosing you or not choosing you. That's what I think that it is.
It can be defined as equity. Some people would say equality, but basically everybody's equal. You're equally poor. and you're equally impoverished. You stand
Exactly.
equally in the breadlines hoping for food that day. That's what the Soviet Union was. That's what Cuba has been. That's what China was until recently, when they tried to marry capitalism with Marxism, so they keep the regime of heavy-handed government rule and being in every aspect of your life. But they also realize you're not going to get anywhere in this world without capitalism. Capitalism innovates because competition causes innovation, but we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, it's
No.
crazy stuff. I think it's time.
We should do an episode on that.
We should. You know, I would really love to get somebody like Rob Ski from AK Operators Union on. I know several folks within the 2A community that lived under communist socialist regimes, and they can tell it to you plain as day what you can expect. It is not utopia. It is not utopia, but that's what they continuously seem to think that's what's going to happen. Oh, we'll just all hold hands and be equally poor and, you know, kick around in our dirt hut, thatch roofed homes and just be happy because we're all equal and none of us really has to go to work. It doesn't work that way, folks. You don't just get a paycheck in the mailbox and buy your Xbox and sit on your iPhone, because none of that stuff would exist. Anyway.